genre.
In the world of Hollywood, movies get greenlit and redlit. They get remade and rebooted. But we are the ideal. I'm Sam Gasch, and you are listening to Ideal Remake. Thank you for listening to Ideal Remake. We take movies that either have been, will be, or should be remade and talk about what the ideal version of that remake would be. Today, we're borrowing Tom Hanks' credibility to make the most Simpsons remake Ideal Remake has done. So far. And here to sing the Spider Pig theme song is Bryan Green. So, Bryan, is the Simpsons movie a movie that has been, will be, or should be remade?
It should be, or at least we should get a new one, right? Like, I think that's what we're at that point, right?
I think so.
Yeah, God, like, that was 2007. That was, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I was looking at it, and even just looking at the cell phones in the movie.
Right.
I was like, wow, this is more dated than I was expected.
At this point, we are, like, in another couple of years, the Simpsons movie will have been halfway through the run of The Simpsons.
Wow.
Just to put that into context, that's how long it's been since we've had the Simpsons movie.
The Simpsons movie is older than all of the Simpsons children.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. Almost combined, but
that's
not
wild.
Not quite, but oh my goodness,
it's getting close to that though.
Yeah, because it's what 10 and 8 and 1, so 19. So yeah, we're getting real close. Good
4 years away.
Holy crap.
Oh, man. Wow. So, you, Bryan, are a huge fan of The Simpsons.
A little bit, yeah.
so much so that, like, all of your social media handles are some variation on Bort something?
Yeah. That was more of a, like, I just needed some sort of a nickname to make it so that my Twitter account wasn't, discoverable by my students.
That's fair.
But, yeah, like, I've... Bort was just always like my favorite joke, like, of anything. It's like one of the funniest damn things I've ever heard.
It's a great joke.
As someone who was never able to find Bryan with a Y, like at any of those license plate things at theme parks, I related to Bart not being able to find his license plate. So yeah, I just kind of turned everything into Bort, and then it's kind of become my nickname online. So there it is.
This is a weird tangent. Is that spelling of Bryan particularly uncommon? Because I feel like I know more Bryans with a Y than without.
It is less common than Bryan with an I, for sure. It's not... Okay. I wouldn't call it uncommon at all, though, but I is definitely the default. Like,
all right.
9 times out of 10, if I'm going into Starbucks, or I'm telling someone my name, they think it's with an I.
Got it. Interesting. All right. Yeah. Good to know. It's one of those things that, like, just I have no concept for it. My name is Sam. It's the most default name of all default names, and it is a great. Just no matter what, someone's gonna have that somewhere.
Wait, so you don't put an H in the middle there? That's weird.
I mean,
you're a real weird man.
My name has been misspelled, but not with an H. But and if it was, you'd say that it was a sham.
Jesus.
There's only one response to that, and that response is wow.
Wow.
It's a sham wow.
All right, I'm going, everyone. Y'all have a great rest of the episode. I'll chat with y'all later.
So, do you remember the first time you started watching The Simpsons? Like as a whole, like, do you remember your intro?
I really don't, because it was always a thing for me. Because I was born in 87, so it would have been 2 years before The Simpsons hit primetime. They were on the Tracy Ullman show before that, I believe, like slightly before. I think the same year I was born, I think it was when they were on the Tracy Ullman show. But I always remember watching The Simpsons. It's especially... I had the Christmas special, the original, like the pilot episode of the full length show. I had that on VHS. It was a retail copy. It wasn't even just like recorded on a VCR. I had that, and I watched it year round. It was a big reason why I love Christmas episodes so much of TV shows and Christmas movies and shit. And then on top of that, I think it's also why I never believed in Santa, but that's a different story for a different time. But yeah, I've always been I've always been a Simpsons fan. I had some of the Simpsons video games on the NES. I wasn't watching week to week for several years there because I was more focused on Nickelodeon at the time. But for the most part, like I would always tune in when it was on. I would watch it with my cousin. Whenever we were in town, and then definitely like when I got to like 9 and 10 is when I really started watching just week after week after week after week, and I was catching up every day with syndicated episodes. I was watching those twice a day. Fun fact, I used to live, so my dad was in the military, and so we lived on an Air Force base, and at 5:30 every day they would play the national anthem and the speakers all around the Air Force base. I know, it's terrible, it's ridiculous. Like at 5:30 every day, and if you were outside, you have to stop whatever you're doing, and you had to put your hand over your heart, or if you were driving, you were expected to stop. You would get pulled over if you were driving during the national anthem.
Pulled over by who? No one else was driving.
The cops would pull you over. They pull you over for anything.
They're the exception.
Yes, exactly.
They don't have to.
And at 10 o'clock they would play taps. And so they would, so they would play that at 5:30 and 10 o'clock every single day, and every day the San Antonio Fox affiliate played Simpsons at 5:30 and 10 o'clock, and that was my reminder. Hey, Simpsons are on. So put away Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Brian, and watch the Simpsons.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But yeah, I was obsessed. It's how I learned how to tell jokes. It's how I learned how to write things in a clever, funny way. It is like, it has so much to do with who I am and like my personality and my just like how I am as a person. Like like this, it is all to blame. The Simpsons, the Simpsons and the Muppets. It's like those two things are just what created me.
Those are, and so if you go by Bort Green, that does encompass both of them.
It's I find it's a little easier to be green. I think Kermit's a little whiny sometimes.
Fair enough. That's a topic for another time. But so for me, I remember in my household, my mom was always like, "The Simpsons is a crass show. It's kids shouldn't be allowed to watch it. You shouldn't be allowed to watch it." But like my parents also worked all the time, so I was just home alone, and I was like, "I'm gonna watch The Simpsons."
You were a latchkey kid, I'm hearing?
Oh. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I don't even remember what episode this is from, but I specifically remember like the first clip of The Simpsons I saw was, I feel like it was Spinal Tap in a bus going over a cliff.
Yes. So that's called the Auto Show, that episode, and they go to see Spinal Tap, and it's a great episode. I love and it's funny is because for years I had no idea Spinal Tap wasn't a real band. I absolutely did not get the joke, and so I was watching this. I'm like, oh man, I should probably get some of this band Spinal Tap's albums because they're on The Simpsons. It must be great. And 30 some odd years later, not everyone who has been on The Simpsons is great. Believe it or not. But yeah, that's a great episode. I love that one.
I've seen it a couple times, but it's not like one of the original like first 8 seasons kind of things. So
it is. I think that's season. Okay. That's like season 3, I think.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Auto Show.
It's been a while. Like, so one of the first things I did at the start of the pandemic is I basically started with the monorail episode and then went from there until like season 8 or 9.
Yeah, Auto Show is 21st episode of season 3. Nailed it.
Well, there you go. Well done. And that's why you're here today.
I have there are important things in my brain that have just been shoved out of my brain that like have made it so I remember that Spinal Tap was on season 3 of The Simpsons.
Your brain is full every time you hear something new. It pushes something else out. I'm trying to remember what the quote is, and now I can't do it.
I can't get that exact, but it's like the time we took that wine tasting course, and I forgot how to drive. It's because you were drunk.
Exactly. Good. So then, I guess the next question is, what are your thoughts on the Simpsons movie?
I really like it.
Does Bort dig it?
Bort digs it, absolutely. And I saw it at a time that it came out at a time where the show was not good, and I've been on and it's funny because the my buddy Robbie, he hosts the Simpsons show podcast, and right now they're going through just episode by episode and reviewing each one, and they just got past the movie. Like they're on season 19, which the movie came out between season 18 and season 19, and I'm here to say that season 18 and 19 are absolute dog shit. Like
Yeah.
they are just bad. And it came out at a time where I was not watching dated week by week because those episodes were just not very good. Like I think I would catch up later on. Like we may have had a DVR. I can't remember if we had a DVR yet at that point. But I was watching them eventually. I wasn't like 7 o'clock Sunday night, gotta watch it. But it came out and I was excited because as a Simpsons fan, how can you not get excited? I mean, they turned 7-Eleven into a quickie mart. It's
Yeah.
I got sucked into that, and I was like, okay, I'm really excited for this. The trailer looked really interesting. The animation looked just stunning, compared to what they had on the week by week show.
It's all of a sudden Simpsons on a feature budget. It's Simpsons in
Right.
3D. And that hadn't been done since season 5.
It's really impressive. Like this movie looks and sounds just stellar. So I went and saw it, and I loved it. I had a great time. I laughed a lot. I think I saw it 3 times in theaters as a result of that. Like I was a big fan, and I go back and I watch it again, and there are problems with it. Like I do have some issues with it. Like I've always thought it's weird that the movie clearly feels like this is act 1. Okay, now we are on act 2. Now we are on act 3. Like it is like those act divisions are so clear, especially in like the transitions between them. Like the visual transitions feel like, okay, now we have to find a way to end this act, and now it transitions into the next act. I find that a little odd, but it overall, I think it still holds up pretty well. And like I said, the show has never looked better, and that includes even today when with the HD budget, like the show looks really good today. If you watch current episodes, they look outstanding, and sometimes they're even funny. Sometimes, like I mean, I'll say this: current season Simpsons is much funnier than anything in the teens. Like like, and they are getting. I think Bob's Burgers. Do you watch Bob's Burgers?
Bob's Burgers is one of those things that, like, when it's on, I really enjoy it, but it's not something I'm ever like, oh, now's the time to watch Bob's Burgers. Like, I like Bob's Burgers, and I've seen a fair chunk of it.
Right.
But it's always been, like, with other people.
So Bob's Burgers, I think, it's been on this air for 12 seasons now. Like, it's about to overtake King of the Hill as the 3rd longest running animated show on Fox, which is crazy to me. But I think Bob's Burgers really captured a magic in it that they are a show that they're an animated sitcom where the family really truly loves each other. The Simpsons, they love each other even though they're fighting 99% of the time. There's something wrong with them. And then you bring in shows like South Park and Family Guy where the families don't love each other. They hate each other and they're constantly like fighting. And the Simpsons course corrected in that direction. I guess I should say course corrected. They veered into that direction in the teen seasons. And so like Homer became more of a jerk ass. He became more of a shitty father. And so for a huge chunk of this show, like Homer is awful, like just terrible, horrible person. Yeah. And it wasn't until Bob's Burgers came on the scene where I think the Simpsons writers realized this is the direction we need to be going. Like we need to be taking cues from Bob's Burgers because these are characters that deep down they love each other, they care about each other, they have fun together. They might have like a squabble every so often, but for the most part, like they're a loving, caring family, and it works so well for Bob's Burgers, and it's working again for the Simpsons. There's a lot of really great stuff that they're doing these days with the Simpsons.
there was some YouTube video I watched because because when I did my Simpsons rewatch at the start of the pandemic, there was a time where I just started being like, this is less fun and more mean.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I watched some YouTube video talking about how it, like, someone else at that exact point took over and they didn't really get Homer and they didn't like Homer, and that just, like, kind of came through. And I wish I remembered more about it or could name the video. But it talked about how, like...
Al Jean has been the showrunner of the show since, like, season, like, 11 or so, something like that. He has been the consistent in the run of the show, like, since, like, the golden years. And he kind of went into autopilot. I think that's what a lot of people start to like think about with him. I don't have many theories like that other people haven't already said a billion times over, but he needs to get out of there. He's been in there too long, and he doesn't seem to care all that much. I'll say. I mean,
I'm not going to name this particular writer just because I don't think he's going to listen, but I might try to reach out to him again. But, like, I've had conversations with someone who was a writer on The Simpsons, and he basically just said, yeah, we basically went in, did the thing, got out. Like, some of the writers work a day a week. They go in, get their paycheck, and do enough to earn the paycheck, and then leave. Because they're all millionaires at this point. Like, and the only reason they keep doing it is because it's such easy money, and they don't have to care.
Right. And in those early seasons, in those early years where everything is just perfection, you hear stories of how they would be going all night long to make sure that, like, this joke is as good as it can be, this scene is as good as it can be. And what they need to do, and I'm not saying they need to go back to that because their work-life balance is such an important thing to talk about. They did not have a healthy work-life balance back then. Why are we still doing 22 episodes a season? When every other show on television, or like every other show that's not like a broadcast show, does 10 episodes, and that's more than enough for most people.
Yep.
Do 10 episodes, spend more time on those 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And make 10 great episodes as opposed to maybe 5 that are okay, and 1 or 2 that's like actually good. And that's what's going on right now with with these. Like, I can point, like, the last, like, 5 seasons, I can point to, like, 1 or 2 episodes, like, hey, yeah, that one's pretty good. That one's pretty good. And then there's, like, okay, that one's fine. And the most are, like, just boring. Like, right now, like, The Simpsons is in a place right now where they are not outright offensive. And they made some awful, horrible jokes. Like, in the teen seasons, they got really into homophobic and transphobic jokes, and I hate it so much.
Yeah.
And, like, I absolutely...
I mean, the movie as it exists like, the movie we just watched has racist jokes in it.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, at least there isn't that kind of stuff going on right now in The Simpsons. It's just boring right now. There's a lot of boring stuff, and then every so often you get, like, a really interesting episode. And when they do that, is when they get those episodes is when they have someone fresh on the writing staff. Like, Megan Amram wrote an episode that was awesome.
Right.
And just like
she was the one I was going to mention.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, get people who are not old white men in their 50s and 60s to write an episode.
Who don't care anymore.
Right. Oh, yes, exactly.
It's I don't know. I have the same criticism that I had for, like, the showrunners of Game of Thrones of, like, if you're not into this, there are people who are. Pass it along.
Exactly.
It's like, it boggles my mind. So my experience with this movie is that this movie came out in 2007 when I was just starting college, so right around at peak Cynical Sam. So I did not really like this movie when it came out. And I actually was given a copy of the DVD of it for a birthday or a Hanukkah or something. And I remember I ended up taking it into Bookmints, the Tucson used bookstore, just for credit, and I got other things. And so that's kind of always been my opinion of it. And the unfortunate thing is that when I watched the movie again last night, I kind of still did not like it.
Okay.
So part of what's always bothered me about the Simpsons movie is that it just feels like a long episode.
Uh-huh.
The swings are bigger, but at the end of the day, it starts at stasis and it returns to stasis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And for a movie, like, I was expecting some sort of permanent change. I was
Right.
mentioning this to a friend of mine yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, so you wanted it to be like the Rugrats movie?" I said, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, they introduced a
Oh,
new couple of
yeah.
characters, and then kept going, same formula, but with new additions." And I'm like, exactly like that. Perfect. Yes.
I agree with that. I think that is something that they could and should have done. And they also sort of teased that, like, at one point they, like, Spider Pig was in the intro, or in the trailers, like every single trailer, like everyone knew the Spider Pig song because
Yeah.
it was in every single TV spot, every trailer that they showed. There was a point where I think one of the creatives said, like, "Oh yeah, well, Spider Pig's going to be in the series from here on out," and he pops up every so often.
No.
He's not in the series. it's
He's he's only in act 1 of the movie.
Yeah. Like, he's in the couch gag for the very next episode. So the premiere of season 19, the intro to the episode, the theme song, Bart is skateboarding through town, and they're like rebuilding from the
Skateboarding
events
past
of the
all
movie.
the broken dome glass. Like, I remember that, because
Right.
I remember I also went back and rewatched it.
Right. And then, like, Homer, like, sits down at the couch, and Harry Plopper, Spider Pig, is there, and he says, "Oh, to summer love," or something like that, and then, like, he doesn't show up for like another season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do wish there was something that changed the world in some way. I know my friend Robbie, who hosts that the Simpsons show, what he wanted from this is he wanted there to never be a Marge and Homer split up storyline ever again.
Yeah, I also was like, great, this is it. They're divorced now. That should be it. Like,
oh, you wanted them to divorce.
Of course I did.
Oh my goodness, no!
Matt
you can't
Groening,
have them divorce.
Of course you can. Homer's a monster. And, like, Marge is better off.
I agree. You can't have them split up for good, though.
Of course you can.
Like, I agree 100%. Marge should have divorced him 1,000 times over by this point, especially the time that, like, he, like, frames her for drunk driving. That's an actual thing. Oh my god, I hate that. I despise that episode so much.
Yeah, there's so much, and in this movie, he does bad things the entire time. And then when all of a sudden it has the consequence of they leave him, all of a sudden he's like, well, why don't they care about me? And then Tress MacNeille shows up in red face out of the clear blue sky to give him an epiphany. We don't know her name. We learn nothing about her. She appears in order to get Homer to go back to Springfield.
Okay, Sam, she does have a name. It's Boob Lady.
I'm aware of that that's her name. I was specifically trying not to say that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's like, oh my god, just they've been telling at that point they've been telling the same story for 18 years of this strained relationship, and every time they show not every time, but oftentimes when they showed the future of the show, it showed them separated. Great, give us that, show us that. There's so much other comedy to be gained from, oh my god, now Homer and Marge are both trying to date, and it's weird, and it would be different. It would be a change instead of just the same nuclear family forever.
I'm not saying I want that. I want to go to the other, like, the alternate universe where that has happened, just so I can see what it's like. I'm fascinated.
Right?
Like, I want to take the DVD box sets over to our universe.
Yeah, and in that universe, there's always two versions of the DVD box sets. There's Marge and Homer, and it's them fighting over which side the kids are on.
And then half of them are in, like, head-shaped boxes, and then the rest are, like, shaped like regular boxes. Because
the Homer ones are always head-shaped boxes because chaos, and the Marge ones are sensible and they fit in line in a row, nice, neat, easy to clean.
Exactly.
So, I feel like the movie as it existed, when it existed, it could have done, like, to make me happy, it could have done two big things. They could have gotten divorced, or they could have had an actual real character death. Nick Riviera, while sad, doesn't matter.
No. And he doesn't die. He showed up again.
Of course he did.
Yeah. he's not dead. And it's ridiculous.
Like, so they do this movie and it means nothing. And that, more than anything else, is what bothers me about the Simpsons movie.
Yeah, for sure. I really wish they had. I wish they could have made Spider Pig a bigger thing. Like one of the more recent seasons, they did. They brought in Santa's Little Helper's mom, and she has been present ever since.
Weird.
Yeah, and it's a good episode. It's a very I think it's a very good episode, and I think it really hits like there's part of me that wonders if they were writing that as a possible series finale because it ties back into the series premiere. It ties back into
Interesting.
Santa's Little Helper coming from the racetrack on Christmas,
Right?
and I really like that idea. I was like, oh, that was very sweet. And then I think they were like, okay, we're gonna write this as our series finale in case it ends. Oh wait, no, we have another 4 seasons coming.
Oh, what's that? Fox was bought by Disney. We're never allowed to die.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, we have to make plus-anniversary specials for the rest of our lives.
Oh God.
Have you watched that?
No.
Oh, it's terrible. It is awful.
The Simpsons content that I've wanted to watch for a really long time is the Apu documentary, and you can't find it anywhere.
Really? I found it on, I think I watched it on Vimeo.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Like,
so if you just Google it, you should be able to find it. It's very good. It's
right.
It's excellent.
Yeah, that's the thing I want to watch more. But okay, so that was what the movie was then. For our version, I think one of the big things you need if you're making a movie, it needs to have some sort of significance to the thing itself, the show. So for our version, for the movie we're making, at this point, is this a series finale? Or is it something else? What is your version of the Simpsons movie?
So my version of the Simpsons movie is it. So I've actually have two ideas here.
Okay.
One is a series finale. The other is a bridge into it will be a bridge into a new era of the Simpsons with new voice actors, new animation style, and new creative team.
Oh, okay.
So
I agree with that too. Mm-hmm. Great, tell me.
So my first one where it's a series finale. I'm thinking this is some sort of a summer adventure movie. So they are either they are leaving Springfield, but I'm not sure I want them to leave Springfield because if it is a series finale, we're going to want to see all of our favorite characters. There's some sort of a big very similar to in the Simpsons movie where there is some sort of a outside force that is threatening the town in some way. Or if it's not an outside force, it's Mr. Burns. Whichever. Simpsons have to come together and overtake this, and then they end up saving the town by the end of the summer. Where it comes into it being a finale is that the movie would end with would end with kids going to school on their first day of school, but they're going in for 5th grade and 3rd grade instead of going back to Mrs. Krabappel and Miss Hoover.
Well, it has been Miss Krabappel for a little while, right?
No, yeah, he has had a string of new teachers since she passed away,
right?
And so they've had a couple that have not worked out, and I can't remember where they sit right now with his teacher. But yeah,
for people listening who don't know, the voice actress who played Miss Krabappel passed away, and so the character of Miss Krabappel also passed away.
It's heartbreaking because she had just married in the show, had just married Ned Flanders, and so
correct.
Ned Flanders has 2 dead wives.
Which means that the only character deaths that have had any real lasting significance on the show have both been Flanders' wives.
Yep.
The only character death I can think of that had any significance was Bleeding Gums Murphy, and even that, he was kind of a visiting character every once in a while.
Right. So the end of the series would be, or the end of the movie would be them going off for their first day of school on at their new grade levels. Bart gets a new teacher. I don't know who this new teacher would be, but it's someone who's able to channel his energy and actually help him enjoy learning. And then Lisa, her new teacher, is going to be Mr. Bergstrom.
Remind me, is he the one with the Massachusetts bolo tie?
Yes. So Mr. Bergstrom, for those of y'all who don't know, was Lisa's substitute teacher, played by why am I losing his name? Dustin Hoffman, played by Dustin Hoffman, and she's is just completely enamored with him because he is actually gives a shit, doesn't hate his job like Miss Hoover does.
He was a Jewish cowboy, and
Yeah.
Lisa doesn't think there were any Jewish cowboys. And he's wearing a digital wristwatch.
That's so good.
I don't remember the episode.
Oh, it's a perfect episode.
It's
I hope you
so
remember
good.
It. Oh, I'm a teacher, so obviously this is like my favorite one. Like it's like in my like rotation of 3 favorite episodes. But yeah, I want him to come back, and he's her new permanent teacher, and so finally she has a teacher who cares enough to, give her the education she deserves.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Meanwhile, I'm not sure. I haven't figured out what Marge would, but Homer, I think he is going to get a promotion of some sort, and Burns is finally going to remember his name.
I mean,
and I think
it wouldn't be Homer if he wasn't failing up.
Exactly. But like, yeah, give all of the Simpsons some sort of a win, and then they get home and they all come home to talk about their day, and then they all go out for frosty chocolate milkshakes, and ride off into the sunset to get frosty chocolate milkshakes.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. You were talking about Jade and Sam, and like that's my sweet hard eyes ending, because I want everyone to be happy in the end, and I want everyone to have a good send off. And what scares me is that they're not going to give these characters a good send off before before one of them dies. Like I'm scared that like one of the core voice actors is going to pass away, and they're going to have to end the series like prematurely.
Oh, I think that when one of the core actor or actresses core performers dies, they're going to try a season with them replacing the voice. It's not going to work, and then they're going to end the series.
Well, here's the thing, though.
We're going to get a scrub season 9 out of it, is what I'm going to say.
Right. I think all the all of the core voice actors have said, like, in that situation, they'd all quit.
Oh, good.
And so, so yeah, they would have to like scramble to replace them, or they would have to end the series. And if they're going to be replacing the family, they just need to do a full-on reboot, and like I said, different animation style, all that.
The Simpsons.
So my other idea, though, that where it's a sort of like a bridge into the reboot, and I haven't figured out what leads to this. Like I haven't figured out like what it is that leads to them looking and sounding different. But I feel like it would need to be something like some weird like multiverse meta thing, like, and where like which
they've done though. Didn't
they have
do an
done
episode where like the Simpsons met like the original character drawings from season 1?
They've actually
like the
done
Tracy Ullman versions.
They've done it like 3 times, and they're all in like Halloween episodes. Like they've done they've done one where they meet a bunch of different versions of the Simpsons. They did the one where the ghosts of the Tracy Ullman Simpsons were in there, and then they did a more direct Into the Spider-Verse parody, which was the same thing that they had done the first time around, which is weird. But I feel like it would need to be something high concept like that, where they meet another Simpsons. They are voiced by different they have different voice actors, they have a different style, they have a different look. Who knows, maybe Lisa's older than Bart in this one. I don't know. Shake it up and have some fun with it. Though is what I want them to do. Don't fall into this hole that we've been stuck in for 33 years. Find something interesting. But by the end of it, it ends with, I think the new versions of the Simpsons getting settled into their lives as the Simpsons, the new Simpsons, and it ends with them going to the Christmas pageant from the first episode, and that's how the movie ends. And that's where our series begins. And
got it.
We don't need to follow the series like from then on. We don't need to follow the series like straight on, but make it cyclical. Like it'd be like, it's kind of looped back on itself, and we have these new characters to watch, the new versions of these characters to watch.
So in both versions of these, what you're telling me really isn't what's happening in the movie. What you're telling me is kind of like the last 5-10 minutes of both movies of
right.
Here's the end. Here's where we're going next. Mm-hmm. And while I appreciate that, what do you want to happen in the movie? In the other hour and 20, hour 30 minutes.
One of my biggest issues with the movie, the original movie as it stands, besides the racism, besides the weirdness where, you know, like Marge it's a story that we've done before and Marge leaves them. One of my bigger issues with it is that they got James L. Brooks,
You know, Hank Scorpio.
and exactly,
And he does Hank Scorpio
supervillain
again. He literally does the same role again in the same voice. I remember sitting in the theater and thinking the same thing. Like, I had this realization, like, as I was watching the movie, I'm like, that's just Hank Scorpio doing Hank Scorpio again. If you're gonna do this, just fucking have Hank Scorpio.
Exactly. And it makes no sense. It's not as funny. It's
Hank Scorpio in a plot line where the Simpsons leave Springfield.
Uh-huh.
And on both accounts, not as good.
Right. Like, it makes no sense to me that they went with this new character. If they were going to do it, why they should have just done Hank Scorpio.
The thing people have been asking for years.
Right. So I would like them to either find a way to go back to Hank Scorpio and do something fun with that, or I think we just need to keep it with Burns. Like, I think Burns
I also think it. So here's my pitch. Well, I mean, I'm gonna brag on the movie as it exists for a second. Of like, they also have magic in this movie, and they have like a magic sinkhole that just like makes a magic noise when someone goes in, and it's very weird. And then like they have these animals that show up to undress Homer and Marge because they're going to have sex, and then like the animals watch them have sex, and then the random Tress MacNeille red-faced lady who shows up out of the blue to just make Homer go do a thing, and it's like, look. Your show has never been, like, realistic, but it has been somewhat grounded in reality.
The thing is, though, I think the reason why, like, as a kid, I accepted that, like, because I accepted, like, everything that happens in this movie, is because for 5 seasons ahead of this, they had been doing this.
Had they?
They really had. Like,
just leaning
like,
really into the fact that this is a cartoon?
Yeah, for, like, the entire teens era, like, they are doing this like weird magic stuff. Like, I think like the big point where most people like think like, oh, it tipped into that zone, there's an episode where Bart or Homer goes and is racing a horse. They get another horse, and Bart is racing this horse, and the other jockeys are like trying to bully them out of the horse racing. And turns out all of the jockeys are elves. Like, literally, Homer gets sucked into a tree. Like, into and they sing a song about how they are jockey elves. This was season 13. No, season 11. Season 11.
I do not care for that.
It's insane.
I mean, unless it's like, because they do crazy things in like the Halloween, like, because theoretically the Halloween and the Christmas episodes were supposed to be their outlet for doing crazy things like that, but then they're just
nope. That's
whatever.
Every episode became a Treehouse of Horror, but less fun.
Yeah, great. Well, it also makes the Treehouse of Horror less special. So you take the cool, crazy, special thing and you make it less special. That's fun. Way to syndrome it up, guys. But okay, so I think there's 2 different things we can do in terms of, like, plot of the movie. The first is, as you say, a Mr. Burns plot. Except, I don't think it should be.
Okay.
I think if we're going to be leaning into that, we have to kind of lean into, like, one of the big things that the show, as far as I know, has never completely requited. And I think it should be, instead of a Mr. Burns plot, it's Smithers doing this big last-ditch effort to be like, look, I have been obsessed and infatuated with you forever. I'm doing this big thing that you would do to try to get you to notice me and respect you on your level. And if this doesn't work, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's my last attempt. Okay,
so he is doing Smithers is doing some sort of an evil thing.
Yeah, Smithers is doing a Burns.
Okay. I love that subversion. That's fun. That's really interesting. Have you watched any of this most recent season?
I have not.
So there is an episode that I thought was actually very good. It was a Smithers, he falls in love with another man, and like very like it was not like coded. It wasn't used as a joke. Like he is very clearly like dating this man, and you come to find out this guy is also a billionaire, and he's also evil. Like he is also evil, like Mr.
So
Burns.
it's very much like just Smithers. Just at some point, does he say, "I guess I have a type"?
Yes, he literally says those words.
Good, because like, he would have to.
He leaves him because he is evil, and in the end, he ends up walking away from this relationship. He's learned a lot about himself. He's learned a lot about about who he is, and he also gets a puppy. He also gets a puppy out of the relationship, and then sort of like this like sweet ending for that. So that's the only reason I feel like I don't feel like if this had happened before that episode, maybe. But the fact that he was so like, I cannot stand by you being
in the current season. Has he gone back to Mr. Burns at all, or has he gone and done his own thing?
I think he's still working for Burns, if I remember correctly.
Know.
All right,
yeah.
Go for it.
I mean, if they like returned to stasis, then I don't know what to tell you.
I love that subversion though. That's a lot of fun.
But the other thing I think is something that they almost played with in this movie and then didn't. This movie was a big step forward in like quality and style, and also what they can get away with. It's a movie. They're allowed to swear. They can have this big elaborate thing where Bart's skateboarding down the sidewalk and like all these amazing things are showing up, and then it's just a slat where for like a second all you can see is Bart penis.
The only full frontal nudity on Disney Plus.
And it is, to this day, I find it hilarious. Like, that is genuinely, like, this big, elaborate set piece of, like, keeping, like, the junk hidden, and then it's just junk. And I'm like, you know what? That is an excellent bit. That is very funny to me. And I knew it was coming, and I was like, it's still great. But what I think you can do is Simpsons meets Pleasantville. Of their entire world is changing. It's becoming higher def, and all of a sudden they find themselves being able to say things and get away with things that they never would have been able to get away with and say. And it's them as a family. Some of them are into it, some of them are not, but in ways you wouldn't expect. Like, Bart probably would be against this subversion, because all of a sudden if everyone is able to say these words, then he's not the bad boy by being able to say things like crap and damn himself. And Lisa would be for it, even though it's a more crass world, because all of a sudden people are more honest and they get to be truer to who they are.
Okay.
And people are able to get away with things in the movie that they wouldn't necessarily have been able to get away with on the TV show. So it's the characters themselves subverting our expectations of how we think they would have responded to this. And it's literally the entire world of The Simpsons going through this transition of, do we want to accept this new, different version of us, or do we want to cling to the stasis that we used to come from?
Okay, I like that. Here's the cool thing. I think both of those ideas mesh well with both of my finale ideas. I think the Smithers plot works really well with them aging up at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I think that one ends is the high concept idea I was looking for to go with the ending where they end up changing.
It becomes a different family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love both of those ideas. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. I think that's what we need. Something like that, right?
We need something. The show desperately needs something that changes the formula. And when they do take a shot and take like a big swing at the formula, I think it's usually when the show works the best. Yeah, God, like my favorite episode in the last 5 years or so is the Halloween of Horror episode, not Treehouse of Horror. There's like an in-canon Halloween episode that is stellar. Like it is a plot that belongs in season 5, 6.
Wow.
And it's amazing to me because what helped work so well with it is that it was something that they'd never done before. They'd never shown The Simpsons on Halloween in a story that was grounded and realistic. Every time it was like, oh, here's some make 'em up bullshit where
that's interesting.
Yeah, this was like season 28, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great. Halloween of Horror. Check it out, y'all.
I like it. So I feel like we should at some point address the actual things that happen in this movie. And the core things of this movie is Lisa meets some some Irish guy, and she has a crush. Bart realizes that he's not really happy with Homer as his father, and he's being more drawn to Ned Flanders as his father. Grandpa has a literal true epiphany in church. It's not that Simpsons has ever shied away from the existence of God in their world, but Grandpa Simpson speaks miracles, and Marge is the only one that believes him, and Homer adopts a pig.
Yep.
All of this, and that's kind of like their weird kind of flowing character progressions, and none of them have anything to do with each other, really.
No.
Lisa's crush shows up with flowers in the middle of an angry mob with pitchforks, as if he doesn't exist in that same world. And it's very strange.
It's incredibly strange.
But the reason I bring it up is are there any pieces of that, because this is technically Ideal Remake, not Ideal Sequel, are there any pieces of that you want to keep?
I love the idea of Bart seeing Flanders as a better example of a father.
I agree. That of the four of them, that's the one that I'm most interested in as well, because it is a super interesting and compelling thing for Bart to be drawn to this of anything.
I also like the Colin. Colin's the Irish kid. Yeah. I like that in that it gives Lisa a chance to be a little girl who has this infatuation, and she has this crush that she may not even be able to like fully understand what's going on in her brain, but like she's like, oh, she has this big crush. And they've done this story, but they've also done this story in similar ways, but with the boys who are far inappropriately too old for her. I like that this kid is her age, and she's able to like I think I wish they kept Colin around. I don't think there's any reason why they couldn't keep Colin around.
I liked Colin just as an example of why Milhouse is problematic. Of like, oh man, this is not okay, but this guy's cool. And it's just like behaviorally and whatever. And it's not even that he's more dreamy or whatever. It's just that like he isn't a manipulative dick. And like I would have liked Colin more if he'd been more present. He just felt like he was a late script addition just to give Lisa something to do. And I think Colin is a little bit more interesting if you Sound of Music it up a little bit and make him drawn into the Mr. Smithers or to like the shifting reality, whichever side Lisa's on, he's on the other side. And now she has to like deal with the conflict of like, is she willing to change what she believes to be with this guy she really likes, or is she more committed to her thoughts, like her own personal beliefs?
How about this? Like, so I think this could be another environmental disaster situation.
The entire world's changing. Or Smithers is doing something. Either way, it's going to be bad for the environment. Right.
So how about like Lisa and Colin, like as this like sort of team that are like working to like protect the environment and get people to start recycling and stop dumping shit in the river. They are working together, and like they kind of become like well known in the town as like, oh, like they're sort of like the Greta Thunberg of this like of Springfield. And then he's bribed by Smithers and Burns to flip-flop on his opinion. And he starts using his mouthpiece for evil. I think that could be interesting.
I think it could be really interesting, and it puts Lisa to the test. And I always think that it's interesting because she's always been the moral center of the show. Don't look into Yeardley Smith. And I always think that it's important. And that's why, especially after the Apu thing, when they put the most obnoxious, shitty words into Lisa's mouth, I always think that's the worst, because she's the moral high ground. Let her be that.
You've seen that episode about Apu, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh God, I hate it so much.
It's very bad.
Oh, I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it. But
so much.
But I think you have to let Lisa be, like, she's the moral high ground. Let her be. Let her fight for the things that are right, and then have to deal with the fact that sometimes fighting for the things that are right is complicated. The world isn't cut and dry, black and white, good and evil. it's more complicated than that. And I think Lisa needs to come to terms with that as well and talk about, okay, he took this bribe and did a really bad thing, but what did he do with that money? Mm-hmm. And where is the gray area that she's comfortable with?
Yeah, I like that.
But yeah, I don't know. The movie is too many things, but also not enough things. It's... But I like what we're talking about. What else is important for you for the end of the movie? Do you want to have this throwaway moment where Maggie at the very end in the middle of the credits, like, Maggie, you're going to say your first word, and then she says the word sequel?
Sequel?
And it's not voiced by, who was it?
Elizabeth. Elizabeth? Why can't
it wasn't Mary Tyler Moore. It was...
No.
It was some big famous person who's I'm now forgetting.
No, not Nancy Cartwright.
It's this big sweet moment.
I'll figure it out. We can keep going.
Maggie, she says, Dada at the end of the episode. Don't forget you're here forever. Gets turned into do it for her. Oh my God, it's great. Anyway, you diminish that for the point of a
Elizabeth Taylor.
Joke. It is Elizabeth Taylor. Okay.
I was like, Elizabeth, like, come on, like I know this.
And I was like, Mary Tyler Moore, so Elizabeth Tyler. We were both definitely there.
Sure.
Yeah, good. But yeah, I think that we both kind of are clear on what we want from this movie. The movie needs to be significant. It can't just be another forgettable episode, but long. And I think we have two kind of options of the way it could go, and now we just need Megan Amram to kill whatever his name was and assume control.
I'm on board for that.
That said, I do have a writer-director for our version of the movie.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked about it a little bit because it's as you say, it's not The Simpsons without the cast of The Simpsons. And even though your version would be bringing in a new cast, neither of us are recasting this movie because it's The Simpsons. You can't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I did come in with a writer and a directing team. And what was important to me is that somehow both of these, the team and the writer, are tied back into the Groening verse as a whole, because it's very insular and they only kind of promote from within. So it needs to be people who've done cool, good things elsewhere that we can then apply here.
Okay.
So my writer, because we need someone who can, at the end of the day, this is going to be end of either The Simpsons as a whole or the end of an era of The Simpsons. So it needs to be someone who's really good at writing Groening-verse era finales. Mm-hmm. So we need the guy who wrote The Devil's Hands Are Idle Playthings, Into the Wild Green Yonder, and the Futurama episode Meanwhile. We need Ken Keeler.
Okay. I'm on board for that.
He is the person who has been cited as saying he's the person who knows how to end shows. And he's written the series finale for Futurama 4 times now.
Yeah, seriously.
And it's always been him because he knows how to do it. And meanwhile, Into the Wild Green Yonder
are great.
and The Devil's Hands Are Idle Playthings are all amazing. Mm-hmm. And they're all good finales. And that's kind of what we need.
The only reason they're not good finales is because, they did.
They're not finales. I will say that Devil's Handle Iron Playthings and Meanwhile are both better.
Yeah.
I like Into the Wild Green Yonder, but it's not quite as good. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, of the 3 of them, it's the one movie. But I think he'd be able to write this movie in a way that it isn't easily broken into 4 episodes.
Right.
And so, for director, I just got the directors for The Mitchell and the Machines. I got Michael Rionda and Jeff Rowe, just because you want wholesome family togetherness with kind of an oafish dad and a know-it-all daughter and an obnoxious son. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie, so absolutely.
Crazy zaniness and just something like that to bring it all together. Just something else, new flavor. Because at the end of the day, The Simpsons is such a strong part of everyone our age is collective consciousness. No matter what, we're going to go through our lives quoting The Simpsons forever. Mm-hmm. We're going to call the big one Bitey. It's just how we're going to live our lives.
I'd really like to see what Phil Lord and Chris Miller would do with The Simpsons.
Yeah.
I hadn't considered that until just now when you said Mitchell's versus the Machines, but
right?
I want to see a Lord and Miller take on, even if they just did a couch gag.
I would love if The Simpsons did a season that was just all, what was it, Star Wars Legends?
Oh, yes.
where
Okay.
it's just an entire season, like 10, 15 episodes, and every episode it's a different creative force behind it.
Uh-huh.
And it's just all of them telling the Simpsons story that they always, like, none of it is quote unquote canon for whatever
Right.
Simpsons canon is worth. It's just all of these different stories that could take place in Springfield. It doesn't even have to focus on the Simpsons if they don't want it to. It's just an entire episode of 22 tales from Springfield.
About Springfield.
About Springfield. And I think that'd be amazing.
There's a Bob's Burgers episode where the entire episode, like, every, like, 20, 30 seconds was animated by someone different.
That's awesome.
It's really jarring because it throws you into the episode and doesn't explain anything. And so, like, if you're just, like, pulling it up on Hulu, it's like, the hell is going on here?
Yeah, you need to go in knowing what's about to happen.
Especially if you're at a heightened state, like, you know, like I was the other night when I watched this episode.
Fair enough.
Like, what the fuck?
I like it. Amazing. But yeah, I think we both kind of know what we want from this. Do you have any other thoughts you want to add towards our Simpsons movie?
No, I think we kind of nailed it. Like, I really love that we have the heart of this. Like, this movie definitely has the heart of the episodes that we love of the show, while also bringing in the higher stakes that, like, a movie kind of needs.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm excited for this.
Cool.
Can't wait for them to make it.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. We will, in theaters only. September
Why does it sound like a
2023.
threat these days in theaters
Oh,
only?
because it is.
God.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, cool. Bryan, thank you very much for joining me for this episode.
Thanks for having me. I was happy to be here.
Yeah. Promote social medias and stuff whatever you'd like to promote.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at BortATX, BortATX. And I don't have a podcast right now, so I'm just kind of, being back to my podcast hobo ways. But if you want to listen to my dumb voice, then check out Theme Park This. It's our show that just ended a couple months ago. And every episode we took a theme park, or we took a concept or an idea or an IP, and we built a theme park out of it. One of our first episodes was The Simpsons. So if you like The Simpsons, you like hearing me talk about The Simpsons, yeah, go listen to that, or just knock on my door. I'm sure I'll talk to you about The Simpsons at some point.
And as someone who listened to every single episode of Theme Park This, and then had the delightful honor of getting to be on an episode where we did all of Nintendo. Oh man, that was intimidating. It's a super fun listen, and I'm sad that it's gone.
But, yeah, me too. But
we move on. It is
I loved
what it is. Yeah. So yeah, cool. If you're interested in following me, I'm on social media on Twitter at Sam Gasch, SAMGASCH, or follow the podcast, Ideal Remake, on Twitter or Instagram. Or the thing you can do for any podcast is to go online and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and that's always great. And the thing I always try to do, because Ideal Remake is a part of the Dueling Genre Network, is to promote one of the other shows on the Dueling Genre Network. And today I'm promoting Franchisography, which is hosted by Scott Corelli and Nick Jimenez, who have both been on this show before. And basically they do a dig deep into entire filmographies of Hollywood's biggest franchises, with development details, behind the scenes stories, and more, as they attempt to get to the bottom of the hows and whys of the franchise. They did Scream, which Bryan was a guest for. I was the first
guest on for the Scream. That was amazing.
They did X-Men. They did Men in Black, which I got to be a guest for. They are in the middle of doing The Matrix, which might be over by the time this episode comes out.
I think the last one just came out.
I am so behind on my podcasts because as a bookkeeper, I've been very busy the last little bit. I'm not even sure what order the 3 episodes I've recorded, and I'm recording another one on Tuesday, are going up in. But I'm going to find out. It's going to be great. But yeah, thank you all very much for tuning in for our remake of The Simpsons. So we'll end this episode the way we always do by asking you this question. Bryan, what is your favorite quote from the movie The Simpsons Movie?
Ooh.
Not from The Simpsons in general, but from the movie The Simpsons Movie.
Yeah, I should have been prepared for this crap.
For some reason, no one ever is. I mean, I don't remind anyone because I think it's funny.
I do like the phrase the epithetry because I like combining words together. But I think I'm just gonna end it this way. Spider Pig does whatever a spider pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, he can't. He's a pig. Look out! He is a spider pig.
Coming to you at all Subway locations in spring of 2007.